Good evening, Westbury family. Welcome to the Board of Education special meeting. Today is April the 11th, 2022. Trustee Pedro Quintanilla.
Present.
Trustee Michelle Wilson.
Present.
Trustee Dr. Ples Dickerson.
Present.
Trustee Rodney Keynes.
Present.
Board President Robert Triano Jr. Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Trustee Keynes, for leading us in the pledge. Good evening, everybody. This is a special meeting of the, is it too loud? Am I talking too loud? It's okay? Okay. This is a special meeting of the Board of Education to present the budget. After getting the state aid runs from the state over the weekend, and as some of you know, the legislature and the governor were by law required to approve a state budget, which includes the amount of state aid they're going to give by April 1st. The state legislature and governor failed to do that and didn't reach an agreement until late, I think it was Friday night, actually Saturday morning. We have gotten updated runs, which are very similar to what was reported to us back in, I think it was January, but there are some differences. One of the big notable changes that we're very happy about is that there's been an increase in universal pre-K funding of about, I think, $400,000, if I'm not mistaken. But there's been a reduction in other forms of financing of about $107,000, which caused just a minor change in the budget and the amounts that were presented last week. Although in principle, the budget amount is very much the same. The highlights of the budget are very much the same. This is a budget that I believe can be characterized as the boldest and most ambitious budget ever presented in Westbury School District history. I am very, very proud of this budget because I think it addresses the three major tenets of a sound school district. One is that it provides for improvements and enhancements, I should say, to our instructional program. It provides for our ability to invest in our buildings and make sure that they are future ready. And also important is that it makes an investment in community support by actually calling for a $2 million reduction in property taxes. And I want to emphasize that a couple of times. In the presentation that was made last week, Dr. Chase noted that. She noted it verbally. It's also in the PowerPoint presentation. In fact, I counted at least 3 times that she made mention of the fact that there's going to be, that this year's budget calls for a reduction in your property taxes, in residential property taxes, and in business taxes, business owners' taxes. I think there's maybe some confusion is because it's so infrequent that school districts actually lower taxes that perhaps nobody overheard that theme. But this is the second year in a row that we have lowered the tax levy, and it's unlike other school districts. And this afternoon, I looked through our neighboring districts, and in fact, Jericho School District is raising their taxes by 2%. Hicksville is raising their taxes by 2%. Uniondale raising their taxes by 1.5%. East Meadow is raising their taxes by 1.4%. And I guess our most immediate neighbor, Carl Place, is going to raise its taxes by 0.6%. In contrast, the Westbury School District will be lowering its tax rate by, I hope I have this exactly right, 2.4%? I beg your pardon? 2.43. Yeah.
2.43.
Our business person is always very exact. Yeah, we are going to be lowering our tax rate by 2.43%. Also, there was commentary made last week that the increase in our expenses seemed high, and it's 3.74%. I pointed out last week that actually that's low compared to the projected inflation rate for the coming year, which is between 6 and 7%. But also looking at our neighbors around us, the Carl Place School District is going up by 3.6%, somewhat comparable to our increase. Uniondale's going up 6%. East Meadow's going up 4.5%. And Hicksville, and there must be some explanation for this. And remember, all of these figures are based on their draft budgets and not their final budgets, which they will adopt later this month. One of them did adopt, I think, on April 7th. But the Hicksville School District's expenditures are projected to increase by 20%. So I just want to thank our administration for holding our increase at what seems to be a level that's lower than most other school districts and lower than inflation rate. And that's despite the fact that health benefits, employee benefits are going up, I think, 14%. So we thank them for that. At the same time that we are going to be lowering the tax rate, we are increasing our investment in instructional programs by some $3 million. That means the addition of staff and also means the addition of programs into the Westbury School District. And on top of that, we are allocating out of this year's budget $2.5 million for capital projects. So we make sure that our learning institutions, our schools, have much needed repairs that in some cases have been deferred for many, 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 many years. On top of the $2.5 million being allocated from the budget, there's an additional $10.3 million that is included in the balance sheet, funding that, some of that funding we have been saving with the committee's approval in what's called a capital reserve. We've been setting aside $2.5 million per year for the day when we had accumulated enough to expend it on capital improvements. In addition, there is money in the school lunch program that can also be used for that purpose, but none of that will happen unless voters pass what's known as Proposition 2, which will allow us to spend that money. Dr. Chase and Ms. O'Neill will address that. And it's for those reasons that I call this the most and boldest and most ambitious budget in Westbury's history, because never before, to my recollection, have we ever had a budget that lowered taxes significantly, increased our investment in instructional programs significantly, and also increased our expenditures to repair our physical plant, so by so much. Why are we doing that? How are we doing that? It's because of the effort made by this community and this board to lobby New York State to live up to its commitment, its legal commitment, to provide full foundation aid. The state has not done that. The one person who applauded right there, Josh Taylor, was an instrumental part in that. He led a trip by the students and some adults to Albany to lobby for more foundation aid 3 years ago. He also led a demonstration with 32 other students in front of the Westbury High School to lobby for what at that time was a $33 million deficit in foundation aid funding. Josh and his colleagues, 32 of them, for a total of 33, were demonstrating for us to have the $33 million in foundation aid that we were being deprived of, that impacted our taxes, our residents, our students, and our buildings. This Board of Education had the temerity to bring a complaint against New York State with the United States Department of Justice, along with other districts, but not all districts. A lot of other districts were too timid, didn't want to take on the fight, didn't think it would be worthwhile. But this board did that, had the courage and the conviction to do that. 2 years ago, we saw the fruits of our labor when the New York State agreed to start a 3-year installment plan to finally fully fund foundation aid. We are in the 2nd year of that 3-year plan. The board, at the time that the state announced its commitment, agreed that our residents had been overtaxed for many years because of the lack of state educational aid. Our residents had to make up the difference. Now that the state is beginning to honor its commitment, this board decided that it was time to roll back the taxes that you pay to pay for our schools. And that's what this budget represents. So I want to be clear that this budget includes a reduction in the tax rate. When we do our budget hearing on May 3rd, I believe that's May 2nd or May 3rd, we will make that point again, and our budget newsletter that's being prepared will drive home that point. Because there's been some confusion about that, I hope all of you that are listening, and there are some people here in the audience, and there are some that are watching this virtually, that you will drive home the point that this budget reduces the tax rate that everybody in this community pays. Now, your assessment may go up, the value of your house may go up, which means that your taxes could go up. But that's not controlled by the school district. That's not controlled by the state legislature. That's controlled by Nassau County. The assessment, the county executive, the former county executive, went through a comprehensive approach last year to reevaluating the assessment of every home in Nassau County. The assessment basically looks at the market value of your house. If your market value goes up, your taxes may go up. If your market value goes down, your taxes may go down. But the school district has done its part by lowering the tax rate. That's the amount you pay per $1,000 that your house is assessed. So we've done our part. We've lowered the tax rate. So I am proud of this budget. We are doing what it appears that no other district is doing, that we are actually lowering our taxes. We have held our expenses to be at a level that appears to be less than the inflation rate and less than many of our surrounding school districts. I think we have much to be proud about. However, I want to say that there was a mistake in the process, and I take responsibility for that. Some of you have commented that we failed to have, let's call them preliminary budget meetings before the one that was done last week. And I got ahead of myself. I thought the most important part was the product, the end result. And I thought everybody would be happy for a reduction in taxes, an investment in the instructional program, and an investment in our capital facilities. I lost sight of the fact that people want to know and have a right to know how that budget was arrived at and what the component pieces are. So my apologies to the community for neglecting to do that. I hope you blame that on my head and not on my heart. It was not my intention to leave the community out. It was not my intention to slight anybody in this community. It was not an intentional omission meant to deceive people or hide from people what the budget was. In fact, as I've said several times now, I am very proud of this budget. I believe it is the boldest, most ambitious budget ever presented in Westbury's history. So there is no intent at all not to publicize this. The failure was in my head not to recognize that, and perhaps because of COVID, that we have a long history of presenting preliminary budgets. And I have taken the occasion to look at what other districts have done, our neighboring districts once again, and most of them have started having preliminary budget meetings back in February, and then again, maybe 1 or 2 more in March. That's my failure. I apologize for that, and I hope that we, in the ensuing weeks, will have the opportunity to fully explain this budget so everybody understands it, and they'll have the opportunity to vote come May 17th. So having said that, with that mea culpa, and also with that bit of a sales pitch so everybody understands what's included in this budget, I will now turn it over to Dr. Chase and her team.
About what we can do together for our students. As Mr. Triano indicated, this is by far the most ambitious budget in the history of Westbury, but it is the most ambitious budget that I've ever had to present to a community in my entire superintendency, not just here, but in my former life. And so you all as community members and this board should be very, very proud of what it is that we're presenting. And as the board president indicated, I don't know any other school district in the state of New York who's doing this in this manner. But it had a lot to do with the groundwork that was laid and the work that you've done prior to my arrival. I'm just the beneficiary of this. So one of the things that I love to do when I present a budget to a community is I love to give it a theme. The theme really speaks to the direction that we're going, and it really speaks to the foundation for building this budget. The theme this year is, what is a vision of excellence? I'm sorry. The theme this year is a vision of excellence. When we first laid out our goals for the 2021-2022 school year, we focused on building a world-class school district. Some of you may remember that term, a world-class school district. Well, in order to build that world-class school district, you've got to have a vision, and you have to have a vision for excellence. We can no longer normalize mediocrity because we don't have mediocre students, scholars. We have scholars who deserve the very best that we have to offer, and we worked really hard to restore those programs that we loved. There are programs that we're going to share with you this evening that may have been in this district some time ago, but we lost them because of the foundation aid, and because of the restoration, we're able to bring back those programs that we know our students will thrive and benefit from. So, a vision, let's go back. A vision of excellence focuses on equity. And by equity, we mean giving our scholars what they need. Equity is about a need. So Scholar Foreman and Scholar Stein, two totally different students with two totally different needs. Our goal is to make sure that those two scholars have exactly what they need to be successful. So what works at Park Avenue School may not be what Drexel Avenue School needs. And so we're focused on that. That's what a vision of excellence looks like. A vision of excellence speaks to high, rigorous programs that you would see in these so-called affluent areas. Well, I believe that we can have rich programs in a school district like this with sustainability if we all believe that we can be a world-class school district. That's what a vision of excellence looks like. You know, I'm going to be honest with you. A couple of days ago, I had a conversation with a few teachers, and it broke my heart when I heard our scholars. I heard that our scholars believe that they were less than other school districts, that the quality that they receive is less than, that they don't deserve certain things, and they don't see themselves as equal to students of other districts. And I said to those teachers, that is the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. Our scholars deserve our very best effort. They deserve our community support, and they deserve programs of excellence. And I believe this budget will lay down the foundation for bringing in programs of excellence and empowerment. We want to empower our students. We want to empower our community, our families. We want to work collaboratively with our communities, with our families, give them the voice to help us to move forward. So, as we stated earlier, I don't need to repeat this over and over. But this is the most ambitious budget in the history of Westbury. It's a budget that speaks to $2 million in tax relief. That's for you. That's your hard work. And that's our way of giving back to the community that has given so much to this school district. But if we're going to have a vision of excellence, it also speaks to robust instructional programs. And so we are investing $3 million plus in instructional programs. And of course, if you're going to have world-class programs, then we need to make sure that we have world-class facilities and learning spaces for our students. We'll be investing $12.8 million in facilities improvements. So, Josh, this is where I'm going to need you to be a part of this portion of the presentation. This speaks to the work that you've done as a student. Those who are sitting in this audience and those who are watching on YouTube, this portion speaks to the work that you've done for this community, for our students, for our schools. The restoration of foundation aid at close to $10 million. And here's how that happened. It didn't happen because we sat on our hands. It didn't happen because we watched television and we yelled at the screen. It happened because we got up and we did something. We were empowered to do something for our scholars because we know they deserve the very best. We rallied 33 high school students and they advocated for the restoration of $33 million. Josh, that was you, am I correct? Nearly 1,000 letters were sent by community members to New York State representatives. That's you all in this community. That's you all who are watching. The board launched a complaint against the New York State U.S. Department of Justice, and I understand there are people who are sitting right here in this very audience who were a part of that movement. We rallied on the steps of the Supreme Court with 400 students and adults from Long Island. I reaped the benefits of this year, and this is why we can bring those robust instructional programs and to provide a decrease in our taxes. State budget has passed. I believe it was Saturday night, the state budget passed. I think, Josh, you were up there when it passed. You with my aunt and a whole bunch of other people. There will be a decrease overall in aid from the governor's budget of about $107,000. But the increase will not impact our bottom line budget. But what we are super proud about is the increase in funding for UPK at over $300,000. You know, any school district that is considered to be a thriving school district, Ms. Lavelle, they invest in their early childhood program. When you invest in the early childhood program and those investments continue to follow students, you will have a world-class school district. Now, that last line, it is the board's goal, and I believe they have done an amazing job at putting this together to return funds to the taxpayers by decreasing the tax levy at $2 million. I'm going to repeat that for those who are at home who may have turned down their YouTube. We will return funds to the taxpayers by decreasing the tax levy by $2 million. So I'm going to pass the baton over to Ms. O'Neill, who's going to explain the budget in detail to you. Thank you.
Good evening. So first, we're going to talk about the school tax relief. As mentioned before, the proposed budget includes a $2 million decrease in the tax levy, which is a 2.43% in the tax reduction. The proposed levy is slightly less than the 1920 school year, so that's really pretty good to look at. If you look at 22-23, what we're proposing, it's slightly under the 1920 level. We provided you with a draft tax rate calculation, and I think what everybody really wants to know is what does it mean for me as the average taxpayer. So the Westbury average taxpayer will see a decrease in their tax levy, or in their tax bill, of $349.69. And again, that rate is assuming no change in assessment, no change in everything else. It would be status quo.
Let's get excited about some instructional programs. Y'all sound kind of weak out there. Let's get excited about some instructional programs. Josh, I need you at every board meeting. This is about our scholars, and this is about raising the expectation gap that exists. This is about raising the achievement gap that exists. And we believe that having robust instructional programs, targeted teacher training, bringing in strategies that's going to help our children and target the instruction will then make us that world-class school district in just a few years. So here's what we're going to do year one. Excuse me, I'm sorry. We're going to increase full-time instructional staff to support innovative programs. We recognize that Dryden Street School does not have an art and music program. We know what the research tells us about introducing students and scholars to art and music very early on. Not only by introducing them to art and music early on, does it increase their creativity, which is our SEL theme this month, but it also increases their math ability. It increases their ability to read. Students learn to read from left to right. Students learn an instrument. Students learn a discipline. Students, we tap into their creativity. And so we're so proud that we can institute an art and music program at Dryden Street School. World languages, we understood from our last presentation that world languages was introduced in the earlier grades, but we want to expand it this year and bring back what was taken away from the school district, which is the world languages for our 7th and 8th graders. I will let you in on a secret, and those of you who are listening to me, you got to keep this secret. It is the goal to expand world languages even down to the elementary schools in a robust way and possibly introducing another. But for year one, we want to give our 7th and 8th graders an opportunity to experience world languages. Our PPS staff, to support students who are at BOCES, we do have quite a few out-of-district placement students who are learning at the BOCES facilities. We believe that we can educate our own students here at the Westbury School District, but only if we have the right resources. And let me just speak to you from a special education mom for a minute. I'm going to put on my mother hat. Under no circumstance will I allow any child to come back to this district if we do not have the proper resources for them. We are not doing this just to do this. That means we are doing a disservice to children. But here's what we believe here at Westbury. We believe that we will have the staff, the spacing, the training to bring our students back, which could be a cost savings to the district in the long run. But overall, they're our children. Why are we outsourcing them? Let's bring them back. Let's give these kids an opportunity to learn in their home school setting. We do project that there will be an additional 7 positions. Of course, those positions are paid from a grant fund, and I want to be very, very clear. We do have quite a few grants, and we're looking to possibly fund those additional positions through a grant. Now, the school district has been working very diligently with a literacy committee, and that literacy committee has devised a literacy plan. The literacy plan identifies where our strengths are and areas in which we need to improve in the area of literacy. You and I both know that if students do not hone in on their literacy skills, they're going to have problems interacting with social studies. It's expository reading and expository writing. Students will have challenges even dealing with math problems. So we understand that literacy is the forefront, and it is the foundation for all learning. And so we've put together a robust plan, and we look forward to year 2 of that plan. I'll give you a little bit of a secret, that year 2 includes the Writing Revolution, which is currently in our school district, that is expanding that writing program, as well as the Foundation's phonics program and expanding that to other grades. We will implement year 1 of a numeracy plan. There's a committee that's identifying a math program for our students at the elementary level, and we'll be implementing that math program in the next year. A signature Saturday Academy. I want this district to have its own signature Saturday Academy. You know, there are districts that are known for certain programs, certain mechanisms, certain structures. I want this district to be known for a Saturday program that gives kids what they need. And so I'd like to call it a WIN Saturday. WIN is an acronym for what I need, and that addresses the needs of of our students, and it will also give students an opportunity to enhance skills such as the sciences, math, and technology. An extended day program, we've started that this year, and I kind of want to see that as like a trial run. We're looking to enhance that and improve it for the next year and starting early. We started the extended day program this year in the wintertime. It is our goal to start that program, in the fall season so that we can capture those students' needs very early on in the school year. A television production program. It's amazing that since we brought in our own sort of internal PR, it's really interesting to watch how students gravitate toward the cameras and looking at some of the PR pieces that we've been working on in our school district. We'd like to introduce a television program here in our school district. We have gone to Glen Cove to take a look at theirs. I think that we're going to Great Neck to take a look at theirs. And then there's a school district in Westchester I haven't told you about, Dr. D. Nicole. I'd like for you to take a look at theirs. And we want to take the model of the best that we see out there and then make it our own. We want students to have an opportunity to learn about directing, about writing, about filming, and hopefully we can use those areas to bring better communication to you all, letting the students give the news of the school district and allowing the students to experience in that area of television production, and so many students have an interest in that. The International Baccalaureate program is a program in which we will be exploring year one next year. It's going to take about 4 years to be a fully authorized implementation school district, but we have to start somewhere. So we will begin, we will begin working with committees at our secondary level to see what a diploma program will look like in our school district. It does not replace our advanced placement program, but it is to enhance our program. You see, an IB diploma will allow our students to compete with students globally, whereas a Regents diploma typically is a diploma that is limited to the state of New York. When colleges take a look at applications and when they see IB on an application, it does make an application stand out. People sometimes refer to an IB program as an elitist program. Well, if it's an elitist program, bring it to Westbury, because I know my students will knock it out the park. And so we look forward to giving our students those global experiences here at Westbury School District. The Universal Pre-K Exploration, it is our desire to expand UPK to a full-time program. We know what research tells us about students' time on task early on at grade 4. We recognize that there are some students who do not have a school interaction until they come into our pre-K program. So having a full-time program really enhances the learning of our early childhood program. And as I stated earlier, when you invest in an early childhood program, that is the perfect recipe to becoming a world-class school district. So I'm going to briefly go over athletics. We're going to increase funding for an athletic mentor. We believe that we can do better in our athletic areas, at least some of our areas, and so we hope to provide mentorship and trainers and guidance to our coaches. We want to increase funding for uniforms, adding an additional $15,000 to what's already established in the budget. We know that our students need to look the part when they go to other school districts to compete. And so we know that some of our teams are in desperate need of uniforms, and it makes no sense that our students do not look the part. We know we want our Dragons to look extraordinary when they compete elsewhere. We will be exploring the restoration of our dance studio, as well as exploring what a fencing and a lacrosse program will look like, and we recognize that we will have to start with our younger learners. Facilities improvements. The interfund transfer to capital to support a 5-year plan. We're looking at $2.5 million facilities budget at the various schools, and I'll just read them all for those who cannot see, who are at home. At Dryden, repair to the soffits. At Park Avenue School, painting of the front entrance. Powell, asphalt repairs. New sidewalk and removal, replacement of asbestos floor tiles at Drexel. And at the middle school, to install additional card readers at the bathrooms. At the high school, to replace damaged ceiling tiles and removal of asbestos as required. an increased funding of just the upkeep of the grounds. You know, our front matters. People look at our school district and look at the overall grounds, and so we want to make sure that we have the proper upkeep. Health and safety, which is our priority at the school district, there will be an investment of close to $700,000. 2 new custodial positions will be added. We do have additions to the school, which means we need more manpower, and therefore we will add more custodial staff. 3 new security positions. 1 is a replacement, 2 will be brand new. A dispatcher for transportation. You know, everyone knows that we had a transportation issue last year in the fall. That should never happen again. We need someone who's going to be dedicated to addressing those needs and making sure that we are routing properly. We're going to increase BOSIS services for training. I talked about this vision of increasing our instructional opportunities for students, but you know what? A program doesn't teach children. Teachers do. So we have to invest in training our staff to make sure that they have the best delivery model for our scholars. We're going to enhance our safety procedures. Our consultant for safety provided us with recommendations in which we will be adhering to enhance our safety procedures at our school. And we want to target our security training. You and I both know that, you know, we're hearing of different incidents at schools today. We want to make sure that our safety team is prepared, well-trained, have an eye to look for issues that could occur and be able to de-escalate appropriately. Security management system, we currently have Scholar Chip. We'll be examining Scholar Chip for its effectiveness and efficiency, and if we are going to look at something new, it will be of its equivalent, but I'd like to hold on to scholarship and keep what we have and just make sure that we're utilizing it till its fullest capacity. And we're going to maintain and enhance all current staff and programs. There are no cuts to staff, no cuts to programs. And we're going to increase our current treasurer's position from a .2 to a full-time position.
So when we talk about the capital projects, the board has been looking at several capital projects for consideration next year. The first part is safety. We're looking to put security vestibules at all of our buildings. You'll notice that Dryden, we have it listed as a grant up there. That's because that one is grant funded. But we are looking to have security vestibules built at all of the schools, as well as a new playground at Drexel. There are some critical replacements that the district needs. We need a partial roof at the high school. We need a rooftop unit replacement over the high school pool. Park needs rooftop units. The administration building and the facilities building both need roofs. And then we have a replacement at Drexel for the roof, a boiler replacement at Park, and along with the boiler replacement would be some asbestos abatement. And then the board is considering Park and Dryden portables. In addition to that, the board is also considering the middle school playfield and track, a high school kitchen, the high school kitchen cafeteria, possibly making that into a food court. We're also looking at district-wide security items, which could be cameras, panic bars, card readers, door locks, blue lights, security operations center. And then, as mentioned before, there's $2.5 million that would be set aside specifically for cafeteria upgrades.
Whenever we indicate asbestos removal for tiles, can you just speak to that? Does it mean that we know that we have it? Can you just speak to what that means?
Well, it's in our 5-year, it's in our adherer plan. So we do know that some of the material is asbestos containing, so they take every precaution. Everybody would be notified of any type of asbestos removal, and all the proper protocols would be followed.
So it's more precautionary than anything else, and just making sure that we follow all the protocols and procedures for tiles that might be old.
Okay. Next slide. So how will we pay for the capital improvements? This is proposition number 2. And it's comprised of 3 different funding sources. One is a repair reserve fund of $21,316. Another is the 2019 Capital Reserve Fund of $7,796,184. And the other funding source is the school lunch excess fund balance of $2.5 million. Now that $2.5 million must be used for school lunch. It can't be used to put a roof on the high school. It has to be used for school lunch. So the total proposition that will be put to the voters is $10,317,500. So that'll be a separate, you'll see your budget vote. You'll have your budget vote, you'll have votes for your school board members, and then you'll have a separate proposition specifically for that. Now this is at no additional cost to the taxpayers. This is money the district already has. We need the proposition, Dr. Chase, in order to spend the money. We can't spend the money without voter approval. So if the voters were to say no, you know, vote this down, we wouldn't be doing any of those projects mentioned in the previous slide. The voters have to authorize us to spend the money. So what happens if the budget is defeated? We have two options. We can resubmit the budget same budget or a new budget to the voters, or we can adopt a contingent budget. If the voters turn down two budgets, we must adopt a contingent budget. And a district that adopts a contingent budget would have to levy the tax levy no more than what it currently is this year. The budget that we're presenting to you is $2 million less than than our contingent level. So right now, the budget that is being presented to the community is under our contingent budget. So how does a contingent budget impact our schools? Adopting a contingent budget prohibits a district from spending any money in certain areas, including community use of school facilities, unless all costs are reimbursed to the district. We wouldn't be able to purchase certain new equipment. As an example, if they wanted table and chairs, there's nothing wrong with them, we couldn't replace them. We would only be able to do things if it was health and safety related. Non-essential maintenance. We mentioned painting at one of the schools earlier. That would be considered non-essential. Capital expenditures, except in emergencies. Salary increases for non-instructional, non-unionized employees, and certain field trips and student supplies.
If in fact the budget is defeated and we have to work on contingent, does that mean that community organizations start facilities?
They can use the facilities, but they would have to pay for them. They would have to reimburse the district for any type of cost. So it could be if we have to have staff to open the building, you'd be reimbursing for staff or just the use of the auditorium. So there would be a charge to the community. So what if the budget is defeated and the proposition passes? So if the budget is defeated and the proposition passes, we can move forward with the $10.3 million in facilities project because that's the separate proposition. But what we couldn't do is transfer the $2.5 million that we have in an interfund transfer to capital line. So the projects that we listed before of over $12 million, you would not get to do all of them. What happens if the budget passes and the proposition is defeated? So if the budget passes, that's great. We get to spend $2.5 million on facilities projects, but that's it. We would not be able to spend the other 10.3. So that would mean you wouldn't have roofs, you wouldn't have the security vestibules. There's different things that you just would not get. We would only have $2.5 million to spend. So the financial plan. As mentioned, our overall budget is increasing 3.74%. Our tax levy is decreasing by just over $2 million, or 2.43%. Our state and federal aid has increased by 15.44%. And our other revenue has decreased by 26%, 26.7%. And that's really because of, in this year's budget, you had an interfund transfer, you closed out some old capital projects, and you move the money into the general fund as a revenue source in this year, and at the same time you had the corresponding transfer back to capital to do other projects. So that's why you see such a large decrease there. Okay, so again, our summary of our revenues. Again, the biggest one, our tax levy is decreasing by just over $2 million. Our state aid is increasing by just under $10 million. Federal aid increases by $100,000, which is our Medicaid. We have our pilots, which is increasing $273,000. We have miscellaneous revenues that are decreasing by about $140,000. And then you'll see the revenue decrease of 1.9 of the interfund transfer. That was the money that I just mentioned before that we took from capital, brought it over to the general fund, and put it back to capital. And our appropriated reserves are increasing by $125,000. Again, overall, the budget to budget increase is 3.74%. So if you look and compare our next year's budget to the 1920 budget, you're going to see that in 1920, our tax levy represented 51% of the revenue for the district. In 2022, it represents 46%. So you're seeing the tax burden go down on the taxpayers. And at the same time, you're seeing your state aid. In 1920, 38% of your budget was made up of state aid, of your revenue source. Now it's up to 43%. So I think that's really good to point out. And again, our summary of expenses. Overall, the budget to budget is going up 3.74%. You are seeing an increase in general support of 5.3%. General support is everything in a budget, if you look at our line item budget, that begins with a 1. That would be my office, that would be facilities, there's parts of technology, it includes our legal fees, it includes our auditors, there's so many different things that are involved in the general support budget. Instruction is increasing 1.7%, and that's basically all of your teachers in the classroom, anything that begins with a 2 in the budget. So that would be all of your teachers, your teaching assistants, any supplies that they need. Pupil transportation is increasing 4.8%. That's partly due to the increase in CPI on our contracts, as well as the addition of a dispatcher. Employee benefits are going up 14.4%, and that's largely due to, we have our normal regular increases, but we've also added staff. So when we add staff, we have to add the associated benefits for that. And then when we have staff that retire and we replace the staff, we also have to add additional health insurance for that as well. Our debt service increases, and that's due to the addition of the energy performance contract being added on. And then again, our interfund transfers, you'll see a decrease of 2.45, and that's really due to the revenue that was a one-time revenue this year from the capital fund to general and back to capital. Yep. Want to talk next steps? Okay.
So we want to educate you as much as we can about the budget, and we want to give you an opportunity to ask your questions. And so we know that, we can't present to you in this forum every single day. So we created an email address just so that you could submit questions. I will say, community, we launched this last week. We received 1 question. So what we did was we just started to create questions that we know that are frequently asked as it relates to the budget. And so I'm just going to read those questions to you this evening, and you can find this on our website. If you go to the, is it Finance tab? If you go to the Finance tab, you'll find our frequently asked questions. Not only will you find that, you'll also find a copy of our PowerPoint presentation, the PowerPoint presentation from Draft 1, as well as a vignette, if you will, a clip from last week's presentation. We just showed you just the presentation portion, and of course you'll see this once it's uploaded tonight as well. We want to be able to communicate with you in different modalities and different ways. So the email address, once again, that was designed just for you community folks and our parents and those friends of the Westbury Union Free School District, budget2223@westburyschools.org. Here are some frequently asked questions. Will a Westbury Union Free School District budget newsletter be sent to homeowners? Absolutely yes. How can I get a copy of the budget? There is a link to the budget on our district's website under the Finance and Operations section, and there is a link attached to this answer. After adoption by the board, the budget will be made available at all schools as well. And you know you can call the office to ask. We're happy to share it with you. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. How much are my taxes going to increase? Based on the budget presented, the tax levy actually decreased by $2 million. Based on current assessments, the average homeowner will see a reduction in their taxes of approximately $350. Where's Josh when I need him? Can I get a woo-woo? Okay. Where and when do I vote? This is very important. The budget vote is May 17th. Polls are open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. The Westbury Union Free School District has been divided into 4 election districts. Election District 1 consists of all the areas lying between the eastern side of Post Road and Post Avenue, south and west of the North Hempstead Oyster Bay Town Line, north of Brush Hollow Road, Union Avenue to School Street to Old Country Road, and north of Old Country Road. Voting registration in this election district shall take place in the Westbury Middle School, 455 Rockland Street, Westbury, New York. Election District number 2 consists of all the land lying on the west of Post Avenue, Westbury, and Post Road, Old Westbury, east of Ellison Avenue and north of Old Country Road. Voting and registration in this election district shall take place in the Drexel Avenue School, located 161 Drexel Avenue, Westbury, New York. Election District 3 consists of all the land known as Newcastle, town of North Hempstead, which lies east of School Street between the Long Island Railroad and Union Avenue and Brush Hollow Road. Also, that which lies between Grand Boulevard and the eastern boundary of the district, north of Old Country Road and south of Long Island Railroad. Voting registration in this election district shall take place at the Park Avenue School, 955 Park Avenue, Westbury, New York. Lastly, Election District 4 consists of all the land excuse me, known as Newcastle, town of North Hempstead, which lies south of the Long Island Railroad and north of Old Country Road, east of School Street, and bounded on the northeast by Grand Boulevard. Voting and registration in this election district shall take place at the Dryden Street School, 545 Dryden Street, Westbury, New York. Another question. Will there be transportation will there be transportation contract cost increases? Yes, the contractual transportation costs are increasing by 5% or $485,924. I appreciate you. Another question. Will the district hire new custodians and security staff for the new middle school wing? Yes, we are adding 1 custodial staff position, 1 security staff position at the middle school. Another question. Oh boy, this question is repeated twice. But it's a good one. It's a good one. How much are my taxes going to increase? Based on the budget, the tax levy actually decreases. Can I get a woo? What's Josh? Okay, Josh, I need you for this next sentence. Based on the current assessments, the average homeowner will see a reduction in their 2022-2023 taxes by approximately $350. There we go. Josh, you got some partners over here. We like it when we all work together. This is, let me get the other one. Where's the revised? Yes. What are the new programs being added? Art and music will be added at Dryden Street School. Woohoo! We will adopt a new math programs for all elementary schools, Josh. Okay. We will expand foundations, the writing revolution at elementary level. Go ahead, go for it. There you go. And additionally, we will expand world languages from grades 7 through 8, and grades 7 through 8. There we go. This is from a scholar. This is from a scholar. When your scholars clap for that, that speaks volumes, community. Thank you. Was there an increase in the school's population? That question came from a community member. There was a slight increase. We have a chart on our website. Community members, please check it out. But in summary, the total district enrollment for the 2020-2021 school year was 4,803. Currently, for the 2021-22 school year, the enrollment is 4,812. Another question. What percent does the 14.4% represent in the 3.7 overall budget increase? This area of the budget supports employee benefits for all district staff. Areas include, Areas include the district's share of all employee retirement costs, Social Security costs, workers' compensation, unemployment, life insurance, health, dental, and retiree payout costs. This area did increase not only due to normal increase in costs, but also due to the addition of new staff being added to the 2022-2023 school year. We could not have added staff before the restoration of foundation aid. What does pilot mean? It's an acronym. In education and in politics, we love acronyms. It's an acronym that means payment in lieu of taxes. 4 more questions, just bear with me. Are any staff being added? If so, what's the cost? The district is adding 8 new instructional staff, 2 custodial positions, 3 security positions, and we'll be increasing the part-time treasurer position to a full-time position. The cost of the added positions is estimated at just over $2 million. What facility improvements are you planning on doing? The district is looking at several projects, including roofing work at several buildings, creating security vestibules at each building. You know, we call them man traps, right? Replacing rooftop units, boilers, cafeteria equipment, upgrades, and middle school play field and track repairs, as well as replacing the playground at Drexel Elementary School. Preach. Additionally, we are looking at repairing portables at both Park and Dryden. These are much needed facilities improvements, ladies and gentlemen. We want to be even more proud of our school district when others come to marvel at the great work that we're doing. 2 more questions, bear with me. What is proposition number 2 for, and what is the importance of it? Well, Proposition 2 will allow the district to use current reserves and excess fund balance at no cost to the taxpayers, Josh. Okay. To fund projects listed above. If the proposition is defeated by voters, no work will be done. Last question. When I look at the budget, I see large increases and decreases in salary lines. Why? The district is creating salary department codes to provide additional transparency for the community. No one's getting a big raise, no one's getting a big increase, in plain language. We're just putting our codes in order in the way they should be done. As an example, the high school, then lists the code, currently contains all regular education teachers, making it difficult to determine how much we spend on various programs, i.e. math, social studies, and physical education. We're just trying to make this more transparent. So it gives the appearance that people are getting these huge raises. Ain't gonna happen. We have created department codes and are moving salaries from generic codes to a more detailed department code for transparency and reporting purposes. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that there are no questions that would be a bad question, and we want to make sure that you have a full understanding of this budget so that when you're speaking to your neighbors about it and people ask you questions, you can answer those questions with confidence. But please know that we're here to answer your questions, even though we have an email address and one person used it. It is functional. You don't hesitate to reach out to myself at tchase, westburyschools.org, or Mary O'Neill at O'Neill at westburyschools.org. We're always available to answer your questions, and we just want to make sure that you're educated and that you're comfortable. Now, I'm going to say one thing. I'm going to go a little bit off script. In my past life, when there was a proposition introduced to the community during the budget vote, I will tell you that sometimes people do not look at the proposition. Sometimes on the ballot, it's on the back of the ballot. We're going to ask that when you get your ballot, I can't tell you how to vote, but what I am going to ask is that when you look at your ballot, you look at the front and the back, because there could be areas on the back of the ballot that requires your vote and your response. So please make sure you look at the ballot carefully. Well, we are hoping that the board will adopt the budget this evening. That is the hope. There will be a budget hearing on May 3rd, and don't forget, from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., please exercise your right and use your voice to vote for the budget, board elections, and Proposition 2. Thank you all so very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Chase. And Ms. O'Neill. Not Ms. Hayes, but Ms. O'Neill. My apologies, Ms. O'Neill, for calling you by the wrong name. I don't know where that came from. But, are there any questions from anybody in the audience about tonight's budget? You guys can fight for who goes first. Ms. Lavelle? And there are also questions or comments in the chat, which we'll read after the in-person audience.
Good evening, Elaine Lavelle, 18 Oakdale Drive. I was going to ask a question regarding the contingent budget, because in the past, I am used to seeing that also presented, meaning that if the budget does get defeated, we do have a contingent budget. I've never seen anything like this where there is not one. But at the bottom here of page 14, I do see something stating that budget being presented is $2 million below the contingent budget level. As for me, I don't know what that I understand what it means, but to me, I really don't know exactly how to read this. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I see here on the same page, how will we pay for capital improvements? Now, Dr. Chase just was talking about a proposition, and I know how important that is. But in the presentation, if I'm not mistaken, I do think that it was mentioned that should in case the budget fail, if I'm correct, please do correct me. If I'm incorrect, do correct me. The only thing that we'll be able to do is use the $2.5 million. Am I correct? Is that what you said?
If the budget is defeated, if the budget fails, you can't use the 2.5. If the proposition is defeated, you can't use the 10.3. So if you can use the 2.5 only if the budget is approved.
All right. Now, the 2.5 that you're referring to, is that the school lunch money? Is that what we're talking about?
No. There is a line item in the budget,
Okay.
in the operating budget of $2.5 million, which is an interfund transfer to capital, and those funds would, if approved by the voters, would go over to do facilities projects. The other 2.5 from the school lunch excess fund balance, that's on Proposition 2, and we need voter approval to spend that money.
Okay, because I do know that that money from the lunch program cannot be actually combined with the general funds. Also, that money should really be used for project costs. Am I correct?
The excess funds in the school lunch account, the 2.5 million, can only be used for cafeterias. So, as an example, we could go in and we could replace equipment. We could not go in and redo the cafeteria floor. So if you were doing something with, let's say, the high school, and you were going to make it into like a food court. So the school lunch money could be used to pay for the equipment and installing the equipment, but the district would have to use other money to, if we were to move a wall or do something with a ceiling or a floor. But the 2.5 million with the school lunch fund will never come into the general operating budget.
Thank you. I just want clarity on that. Thank you. Now, okay, one more thing regarding the capital projects for consideration. Regarding the kitchen and cafeteria, the high school, is that part of a general fund? Will the dollar amounts will be taken from the general fund to do this?
No.
No?
No, with the capital projects for consideration, that is all done by the proposition,
Okay.
as well as the interfund transfer. So 2.5 million would come from the general fund only if approved by the voters.
Wow. So we wouldn't be able to get this if it doesn't go through.
You will not get this
Okay.
if Proposition 2 is not passed.
Okay. Understand. I didn't understand it that way, but thank you very much for the clarity on that. And then one other thing that I want to mention, if this is not the appropriate venue, then I'll hold off. At I want to say nutrition meeting, I did speak about trailers, and I was told that the trailers were in use. However, I wanted to know, having said that, where are we with the ventilation issue that the district is facing? And as you recall, I was told that we are waiting on state ed for approval. So explain that to me.
Mr. Stein, I just want to confirm, we have not received state ed approval yet, or have we? So we are still waiting on New York State Education Department to give us final approval of the plans and specs. Once we have the final approval from state ed, then we can move forward.
So no building in the district has not been, no ventilation has not been done at all? So far, nothing?
Not if it's under one of those projects.
Oh, okay. All right. I just wanted to know because I do know that there are some employees who are still displaced. I mean, they are in a spot to work, but what I'm saying is they can't use their offices, neither could they use the regular classroom space. In fact, the administrators are trying to do their best to keep it going. So that's my concern because it's been 2 years plus. So I think this needs, I don't know if there should be a follow-up or what, but we can't wait for another year or two to have employees being displaced. Can't go to their offices and be bunched up together. So that's my last concern.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chester McGibbon, 502 Alicia Drive. Under academic initiatives, as educators, we know that STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, seems to be the way most school districts are pushing now. I was hoping to see a more some more details on that on the academic initiative. Can you say something about that, Madam Superintendent?
Yes, sir. Well, one of the things, and I should have made that more clear, we'll be using our Saturday Academy to address those STEM needs in our school district. Currently, Mr. McGivens, we have a robust STEM program working with professors from Malloy College. They're housed at Powell's, but we have students from all the elementary schools represented, even as early as Dryden Street. What we're going to do is take the program, the best parts of our extended day Saturday program for this year, implement it next year. So when I was presenting, I talked about this being sort of like a dry run, if you will, and we're going to start early, and there will be a STEM focus. We hope to continue to work with Malloy. If not, I know Old Westbury has indicated that they wish to work with us in building a STEM program. We also will have STEM focus for our summer school. I kind of revealed that a little prematurely, but you asked me the question. We will continue to work with all of our schools to implement STEM throughout the day. Although it wasn't highlighted here in this presentation, it is still very much so a focus in our school district.
You said the Saturday Academy?
Yes, sir, at Powell's Lane Elementary School.
And one other thing, on the pilots, is it 3-point-something millions we got from pilots?
Is that what it is, Mary? It's 3 point for pilots? Was it 3 point?
3 million something. Pilots money. Revenue sources. Yeah, that's huh?
3,627,000.
Right. But I'm really more interested in, I think we got $22 million under ESSERS, that's the acronym for Elementary, Secondary Schools Emergency Relief Fund. Where's that reflected in this budget? Was that?
This is the general operating budget. It's not reflected in there. That would be part of our grants.
So did we get that money? Was that money disbursed to us?
We actually just received approval for $10 million a couple weeks ago.
And I'm talking about the $22 million that we got from that, for that relief fund.
For the ESSER.
Uh-huh.
Right. It's a combination of grants. If you'd like, we can provide a listing on the website.
It's not $22 million?
I would want to give you the exact amount without having it in front of me.
Yeah, could you check on that for me? Because I know that we had that previously along, yeah.
We did, and Mr. McGivens, not only are we going to put it on the website, but I want to just not wait for the next meeting for you to get your answer. So we'll give Mr. McGivens a call tomorrow. I have his information, and we'll make sure that you have that. And then at our May planning meeting, we want to share widely to make sure that your question. In fact, what we can do, Mary, we'll add that to the FAQ. We'll add that question to the FAQ.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Isabella Hamilton Lomax, 565 Jefferson Street. I did not ask this question last time, but I did notice that under the academic initiatives, there was $25,000 allocated for the International Baccalaureate program. And I know that we spoke about that briefly for the 11th and 12th graders. And I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the implementation of the program, or is that, I guess, researching to determine if we can implement the program?
To be honest with you, next year is year one, and that's when we'll start the application process. That is the fee for the application process. And so depending on how far we get into the application process for next year, we just wanted to make sure that we had the money available for the application process. So that's what it costs.
Okay, so there's no guarantee that our application would be accepted into this program?
Oh, I can't guarantee you anything.
Okay.
But what I will say is that we have a very strong chance. We hired a person who's passionate about the IB program, who has launched IB programs in 4 other school districts, and I am pretty confident that we have the requisites to be accepted. Now, I cannot tell you it's a guarantee. I'm not going to do that. but we do have a very strong chance.
Okay.
And I will tell you, in my previous life, I've built an IB program. So we kind of know what it takes to do it. And so we have all the ingredients right here in the school district.
Okay, so it's $25,000 to apply. Has it, is there like an estimated cost? I mean, since you have experience implementing IB programs in other districts, that the district could be told that we may have to pay for this program?
You do have to pay for the program.
Yeah, I know. How much?
I cannot tell you off the top of my head, but there is a fee. There is a yearly fee to continue with the authorization of IB. There's a fee that's attached to materials, and so it is our desire to continue to budget so that we can maintain the program with sustainability. The last thing I want to do, Ms. Lomax, is start it and we can't sustain it. And that happens in some districts.
Right,
And so that's
many
not,
districts.
Exactly, it does happen. So your question does have merit. That's not our goal. We know that it does take funding to sustain the program, and it is our desire to forecast so that we could maintain the program with fidelity.
And what percentage of students, I mean, and maybe this is early, would benefit from this program?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, typically when school districts start the program, they'll start with like 5 kids, 10 kids, 15. You know, when I think about the high school, the number of students here, you know, we have to really identify the percentage of how many students already have the requisites to take on these rigorous programs. We have to also factor in which courses that we're going to offer. We're going to have to factor in the staffing that we have, the availability of staffing. And so there are a couple of factors that go into this, but we have all the ingredients to sustain this program. So it's not a pie in the sky, a one and done. If that's going to be the case, I wouldn't implement it.
Okay. And then I had another question, and I don't know if this should be addressed to Ms. O'Neill, but there was an advertisement, or I guess a newsletter that was sent home recently about an award or a partnership that we're doing district-wide with, I don't know if it was an energy company. I wish I had brought the letter to talk about some benefits that the district would be seeing in cost savings, and I was wondering how that cost savings was translated into the budget for the facilities.
You want to take it?
So are you talking about the energy performance contract?
Yes.
Okay. So the energy performance contract, what it does is I believe it's on the website as well, the amount that the district anticipates saving. It looks at the actual, and I might be using the wrong term, but the terms that something uses, and what the district is supposed to see is an overall reduction in the usage. Now, our difficulty now is everything's going up so high, but what we can do is compare what it was, and assuming everything else remained the same, what our savings would be. And then the savings from that is used to offset the debt service payment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from members of the audience, the in-person audience? Seems like they're not. There are a few questions in the chat and comments. I just want to go back, though, to the initial question that Ms. Lavelle asked, which I don't think got addressed. And she asked, she did not understanding the impact of a contingency budget. And I think that's because this is we're in a very different situation than we have been in the past. Typically, a contingency budget goes into effect when a school budget is defeated by the voters. And what the state requires is that, and the district has 2 opportunities to pass the budget. If it goes, if the board chooses, if it's defeated the first time, the board chooses to put up a budget again, and it's defeated again a second time, and the board doesn't have to put it up a second time, but if should it decide to, and it's defeated yet a second time, then what we're accustomed to is that the state requires that the tax levy be no higher than it was in the prior year, which means that the district would have lost revenue. So the only way to make your revenues match your expenses in that is to cut your expenses. And so typically what you saw was the possibility that there would be staffing cuts to bring the expense base down to what your revenue base is. This is different this year. This is an anomaly. And I'm hesitant to say this definitively, but it appears that in this case, the board is proposing a $2 million reduction in property taxes. If somehow, for some reason, the voters of this community decide to vote down that budget, we would have to revert to last year's tax levy, which would mean that instead of giving voters a tax reduction, they would have a budget, they'd have a zero increase, no decrease. The tax would remain the same as it was the prior year. So it's kind of odd. So the punishment for not voting for the budget is that your taxes go up, which is different than what we would normally expect. But there's no need to cut expenses because we still have the money. In fact, we would have more money. Except that, as Ms. O'Neill outlined, we couldn't make capital expenditures. So that $2.5 million that is anticipated in this year's budget, we couldn't do that. And there are some other smaller adjustments, but they're not really very significant or meaningful. So the two major impacts of a defeated budget would be that the board couldn't offer you a tax reduction, and we couldn't make equipment or capital expenditures. So it's different this year, Ms. Lavelle, than we've seen in past years. And that's why it's a little bit difficult to wrap your head around, and I understand that. Okay, there are a couple of questions in the chat. Sure.
Okay. There are questions and comments in the chat. Pablo Sinclair says, thank you, apologies accepted.
Thank you, Pablo.
X-Bunny Girls X, in Spanish, in Espanol, says, the signal is failing. I'm kind of getting some feedback that some of the live feed may not, the sound may not be adequate for some. Katrina or Katiana Partis asked the question, removal of asbestos. There's current exposure to asbestos. Please elaborate, and I did already. So I thank you for your comments and your question. She continues by saying the plans and the proposals sound overdue. Our schools deserve the best of the best. I will pay top dollar to ensure that our kids, our schools, and our community gets better and stronger. Appreciate those comments. However, I am concerned that the district will not be held accountable to provide receipts of some sort of all of these expenses. How will we know that all funds will be allocated as proposed? Well, we'll continue to be as transparent as possible. You are encouraged to come out to board meetings, ask questions. We will be transparent in our spending. Ms. O'Neill, is there anything you'd like to add to give Ms. Katiana some relief from her anxiety?
Sure. And I don't know if most people are aware of this, but everything that we spend in the district, before a check is issued, we actually have it audited. So we have an internal claims auditor that looks at everything that we send out of the district. We also have an external auditor that comes in on an annual basis and reviews the books as a whole. So we do have to follow proper protocols to spend any of the money that's in the budget.
Dr. Cynthia Oriana used a couple of emojis. It looks like hand claps and celebratory emojis. Kimberly Wilson asked, great night. I have noted very large salary increases. That was a question that was asked in the FAQ. Can you please elaborate? Mary, are we really having these large salary increases, or are we just being transparent in how we code different positions?
We are not having large salary increases, nor are we eliminating any kind of staff. We're doing nothing more than taking it from having an entire building coded to one code and breaking it out into different departments so that next year when we run reports, you'll be able to see, the community will be able to see, the board will be able to see how much do we spend in our math program, how much is science, how much is social studies, and that's what we're working towards doing.
It's more transparency than anything else. There are no further questions in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Erica Mendez. Whoops, sorry about that. My name is Erica Mendez, and I live at 63 Drexel Avenue, Westbury, New York. I'm very excited. My daughter was excited that you mentioned about the languages being added. So one of the things that she mentioned was about sign language, and this was way before you mentioned it. We were talking about it like, was it 3 weeks ago, Aliana? Something like that. But she wanted to know if that's something that would be implemented as a language, since it's something that's, you know, it's actually rising. So
your question is a great one, and you know it has not been on our radar, but I understand how sign language is it can be extremely appetizing for a future employer to someone to put that as another language, right, on their resume. We haven't thought about that, but I'm going to tell you, you kind of gave me some food for thought to consider sign language in the school district in the future. So I want to thank your daughter, our scholar, everybody who's hiding from me over there, for just even suggesting that. And we love to hear suggestions from our scholars. And we know that, you know, it's a language that oftentimes isn't referenced as a language, but there are many job opportunities attached to knowing American Sign. So that is something that we will consider in the future. Thank you so much.
and also what new languages are looked at to be added on?
So we're going to continue to expand French and Spanish offering, and we are in the process of having conversations about Mandarin in our school district. Mandarin is going to be the #1 spoken language in the world in the next 10 years. And so we want our children to have true global experiences and not just say it in our mission, but to believe it and to walk the talk. So that's what we're looking at. But American Sign sounds pretty interesting, so we'll do some exploration in that as well.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I appreciate your question.
Have a great evening.
You as well.
It appears that there are no more questions. I want to thank the administration for that presentation and also our community for the questions they asked tonight and during the week and even last week. I'm now going to ask for a motion to go in executive session to discuss personnel items as they affect the budget. I anticipate there will be an executive session for 15 to 30 minutes. When we come out, it is likely that the two items that are shown on tonight's agenda, which I think you all have copies of, one is the adoption of the 22-23 school year budget, and the second is the adoption of the property tax report card for the 22-23 school year. I anticipate that when we come out of executive session, those two items will be voted on. Can I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Dr. Dickerson? Yes, thank you. And seconded by Trustee Bowling. Ayes. Trustee Keynes?
Aye.
Trustee Bowling?
Aye.
Trustee Dickerson?
Aye.
Trustee Wilson?
Aye.
Trustee Quintanilla?
Aye.
Vice President Ewing? Aye. And I, Robert Troiano, vote aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Test 1 2. Test 1 2. This is the superintendent's microphone. Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Test 1 2. This is the board president's microphone. Test 1 2. Test 1 2. This is the board. Go ahead.
But don't be hurt by that, okay? Can I have a motion to come out of executive session, Rodney? So moved by Trustee Kane. We have a second by Trustee Bowling. Ayes. Trustee Kane? Trustee Bowling?
Aye.
Trustee Dickerson?
Aye.
Trustee Wilson?
Aye.
Trustee Quintanilla?
Aye.
Vice President Ewing?
Aye.
And I, Robert Troiano, vote aye. Motion carries unanimously. May I have a motion to adopt the 22-23 school year budget in the amount of $175 million, $175,085,809, which includes a $2 million reduction in property taxes. Do I have a motion?
Second.
It's been moved by Trustee Bowling. Do you have a second?
Second.
Seconded by
Wilson.
Trustee Wilson. It's been moved and seconded. Trustee Kane? Trustee Bowling? Trustee Dickerson?
Aye.
Trustee Wilson?
Aye.
Trustee Quintanilla?
Aye.
Vice President Ewing?
Aye.
And I, Robert Troiano, vote aye. The ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. May I have a motion to adopt the property tax report card for the 22-23 school year, which will show a reduction in property taxes? We have a motion from Dr. Dickerson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by everybody. Seconded by Vice President Ewing. That's the first thing I heard. Ayes. Trustee Kane? Trustee Bowling?
Aye.
Trustee Dickerson?
Aye.
Trustee Wilson?
Aye.
Trustee Quintanilla?
Aye.
Vice President Ewing?
Aye.
And I, Robert Troiano, vote aye. Motion carries unanimously. And finally, may I have a motion to adjourn? Robin?
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee, motion made by Trustee Bowling, second by Trustee Kane. Ayes. Trustee Kane? Aye. Trustee Bowling?
Aye.
Trustee Dickerson?
Aye.
Trustee Wilson?
Aye.
Trustee Quintanilla?
Aye.
Vice President Ewing?
Aye.
And I, Robert Troiano, vote aye. Motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see everybody at the budget hearing on May 3rd. Thank you all.